4 more cases of coronavirus have been reported in England, bringing the total number in the UK to 8. They're all known to have come into contact with a previously confirmed UK case. It's believed to have come from a British businessman who went to a conference in Singapore. From there, he went skiing in Les Contamines-Montjoie in the French Alps, where he came into contact with these new cases. The businessman then travelled to Brighton, where he became unwell. He was transferred to London for treatment. The new cases announced this morning were also taken from Brighton to London over the weekend in order to receive specialist care. It comes as the government introduces new powers to deal with the spread of coronavirus, declaring it a serious and imminent threat to public health. Under new measures, the Department of Health says people with coronavirus can now be forcibly quarantined and will not be free to leave. Our health correspondent Philippa Roxby is here. Lots of developments to talk through, Philippa. I can see you've scrawled on the page in front of you a diagram linking all the different cases. So just talk us through the latest developments.
Yes, well, up until this morning, we knew that there were 4 UK cases of coronavirus in the UK. The student in York and a relative, they were both Chinese nationals. There was this other man in Brighton who had come via Singapore. He'd been diagnosed, and another contact of his who'd also caught it in France. And this morning, we realised there's another 4 cases who are all linked to the ski chalet in the Alps, where the man from Brighton was holidaying for a few days. So that's been passed on there, and those 4 new cases have returned to the UK. So there's now 8 in total. He's
being dubbed a super spreader.
Yes, that's a difficult term. We don't quite know what that means as yet. It's certainly true that he is linked to 5 of these cases, which seems quite a large number. But of course, he was in very close contact with people on holiday in a chalet. And when that happens, there's a lot of opportunity for cough droplets to be passed around. And that's obviously where the virus infected other people. But this term super spreader is slightly unhelpful at this point because it just happens to be a highly transmissible virus. And these other people were very in close proximity to him.
So what's the latest on quarantine? Because new powers have been brought in that will mean that somebody who is suspected of potentially having the virus will be able to be forcibly quarantined. And this came in because one person under quarantine decided that they didn't want to stay.
Yes, it's reported that somebody who flew back on a British flight from Wuhan in China, which is where this virus originated, wasn't happy about being quarantined. The government have asked people to sign a contract before they got on those flights to make sure they were happy about being in isolation for 14 days. But of course, somebody obviously decided they weren't too happy about that, and the government have had to up their powers in order to enforce that quarantining for the full 2 weeks. And that's in order to stop the risk of the virus being spread any further.
I mean, the case of the businessman who's being treated now in hospital in London himself indicates obviously the chain of somebody who has the virus but maybe unaware, spreading it as they go. How widespread is the quarantine in this country currently?
There are 2 particular facilities which are being used, one in Milton Keynes, the other in the Wirral, where people are being quarantined. There are also specialist hospitals dotted around the UK, a couple in Scotland, some in England as well, in Newcastle and in London, which are specially prepared to treat people with these very infectious diseases. They know exactly what they're doing.
And how many are in quarantine, and how wide does the net go in terms of putting people into quarantine?
We're talking several hundred now, I believe, at the latest count. And there will be people all the time who are worried about their health, who may have travelled back from other parts of Asia, not necessarily China, and may have symptoms, even very mild symptoms. And the government are saying that the right thing to do is to be cautious, to phone NHS 111, not to go into your GP surgery, but to alert somebody via NHS 111, and they can be treated, picked up.
Thank you very much, Philippa.